It was 6:15 in the morning, the kind of quiet stillness that made everything feel too heavy, like the world was still half asleep and nobody really wanted to wake up. The fog hung low, thick like wet cotton, pressing in from all sides, making the streets look like they were still wrapped up in a blanket from the night before. Outside, the city of Glenfield hadn't fully opened its eyes yet. Lights in windows flickered on, one by one, like hesitant heartbeats. A paperboy pedaled down Maple Avenue, his bike tires slapping the wet pavement, but he wasn't looking up, just tossing newspapers without any real care. A dog barked somewhere, distant and hoarse, a lonely sound in the morning fog. But not Calvin Booker. Calvin was wide awake, even if his body wasn't exactly ready for the day ahead. He'd been driving through this quiet town, the hum of his car the only sound keeping him company. There was no fanfare for him today, no parade, just a long road ahead, a heavy weight on his shoulders, and the quiet promise he had made to himself. Today, he would walk into Glenfield City Hall as the first black mayor in the city's history. No one cared about that part. Not yet. They didn't know him, not really. They didn't understand the significance of the moment, but that was all right. It was just him, alone in his thoughts, making his way to the office. He wasn't looking for approval. He wasn't looking for a cheer. He was just looking to do what was right. He was dressed sharp, light blue dress shirt under a dark navy coat, modest, clean, and precise. His hands were steady on the steering wheel, his focus absolute. There was a jazz station playing softly in the background, the smooth sounds of Miles Davis bleeding into the air like an old memory. But Calvin didn't hum along. He didn't smile. His mind was elsewhere. It wasn't on the speech that sat waiting in the passenger seat. No, it was on the history that had brought him here, and the weight of what lay ahead. The streets outside his window were nothing but scenery, cracked brick walls, shuttered shops, sidewalks where he'd once swept as a boy. This town had always felt like home, but today, it felt different. It felt like he was walking into the heart of something bigger than himself, something that needed change. As he neared Riverfront Boulevard, something caught his attention. The sound of his jazz music cut off abruptly, static filling the air as he reached down to turn it off. And then it came into view, a flash of white. A police cruiser swerving, out of control, once, twice. No sirens. No urgency. Just recklessness. Calvin's jaw tightened. Something shifted in his gut. Not fear. Not yet. But alertness. The kind you get after growing up in a world where bad things often wore badges. He slowed down, keeping a careful distance. He flicked his headlights. Once, twice, then a third time, long and deliberate. Still, the cruiser swerved. Calvin reached into his coat pocket and pulled out his official badge. He set it down on the dashboard, careful, deliberate. The leather felt cool under his fingers. He didn't need to show them who he was, but in this moment, he wasn't going to let them forget. He pressed the gas, enough to close the gap. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't some scared citizen hoping for a break. No, he was the mayor, and he was about to show them what that meant. Finally, the cruiser slowed, drifting lazily toward the gravel shoulder beside a broken-down gas station. The street was deserted, nothing but fog, faded murals on cracked brick walls, trash tumbling lightly in the wind. Calvin parked a few feet behind the cruiser, engine idling. For a moment, he just sat there, hands resting lightly on the door handle. He wasn't nervous, but he wasn't numb either. There was something in the air, something too familiar, like a lesson he'd already learned coming back in a different form. He looked in the rearview mirror, no fear in his eyes, just patience, the kind of readiness you don't unlearn when you've been pushed down one too many times. He opened the door, stepping out into the cold, damp street, the fog brushing against his coat like fingers trying to hold him back. The street was empty, but he wasn't alone. This wasn't just a traffic stop. This wasn't just a routine encounter. This was something more, and Calvin could feel it. Before he could even speak, the driver's side door of the patrol car slammed open, a metallic thud echoing through the fog. Out stepped a young white officer, no older than his late 20s, skinny, with a sharp jaw and a cocky bounce in his step. His mirrored sunglasses caught the faint light, even in the thick fog. And as soon as he laid eyes on Calvin, his mouth curled into a smirk. A moment later, the passenger door opened. A bigger man climbed out, broader, bulkier. His arms were thick as fence posts, and he rested one hand lazily on the handle of his baton. Neither of them said a word at first. They just stood there, like they were waiting for a punchline, sizing Calvin up with the kind of arrogance that only comes from years of unchecked power. Calvin raised one hand in a calm, practiced gesture. His palms were open, no sudden moves. His voice came low, firm, but steady. "Good morning. I noticed some erratic driving back there. I'd like to see your IDs and badge numbers." The skinny officer cut him off with a laugh. He walked toward Calvin, slow, like he was approaching something beneath him. "What the hell is this? You pulling us over?" He chuckled again, louder this time, nodding to his partner. "Yo, look at this guy. Shirt tucked in, coat ironed, standing like he's about to give a damn press conference." Calvin didn't smile. He didn't flinch. "I'm Calvin Booker. I was elected to office 2 weeks ago. Today's my first official day as mayor of Glenfield." He reached into his coat and pulled out his badge holder, holding it out to the officer. "I'm asking you to identify yourselves, officers." The bigger officer snorted, stepping closer, shaking his head. "Mayor, huh? Oh, is that what we're calling it these days?" He grabbed Calvin's badge without permission, flipping it open. "You know how many guys we catch flashing fake badges around here?" The smaller officer whistled and laughed. "Mayor, my ass. You really think walking around dressed like a Walgreens lawyer and flapping your gums makes you somebody?" They both laughed, dismissing him like he was nothing, like he didn't belong there. And then, without a word, the bigger officer struck a lighter and held it under the edge of Calvin's badge sleeve. Calvin's eyes didn't leave theirs. He wasn't angry. No, he was just cold. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "You just destroyed official city property. I'm warning you." The smaller officer sneered, stepping up close to Calvin. "Nah, man. You're warning us? Who the hell do you think you are?" The larger officer circled around to Calvin's side. "Could be one of those sovereign citizen nut jobs. Always act polite right before they pull a weapon. I say we pat him down." Calvin stood his ground, eyes locked with theirs. "You touch me, and you'll be facing felony assault on an elected official." And that's when it happened to shove. It wasn't hard enough to knock him down, but it wasn't about control. It was about humiliation, the kind of shove that said, "You don't matter here." Calvin took a step back to keep his balance, but it was enough to send a message. And he wasn't backing down. Not this time. The skinny officer stepped forward again, ready to take another swing, but Calvin was quicker this time. He lunged, knocking the bigger officer back, sending him stumbling. And without thinking, Calvin slammed the door of his car, locking himself inside. Inside the car, Calvin's chest was heaving, but his hands were steady as he grabbed the radio mic beneath the dashboard. His voice shook, but he spoke into the receiver. "This is Mayor Calvin Booker. Badge number 2075. I am under physical assault by 2 Glenfield PD officers. Requesting emergency response. Code black." Outside, the fists started pounding against the windows. Calvin could hear their curses, their threats. But he didn't look away. He kept his eyes forward. He knew help was on the way. All he had to do was survive the next few minutes. And sure enough, the sirens came. Not one, but several, wailing through the fog. The bigger officer froze first, his eyes scanning the fog. "What the hell is that?" The skinny officer muttered. "That better not be who I think it is." But Calvin knew. He recognized that siren pattern. It was the city's emergency response unit, assigned to protect elected officials. The scene exploded into chaos. Squad cars surrounded Calvin's vehicle, officers spilling out, and in the middle of them all stood a man in a dark trench coat, a gold badge hanging on a chain across his chest. "Step away from that vehicle. Hands where I can see them," he ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. The 2 officers froze. Their swagger was gone. The smirks were wiped from their faces. They were scared now. But Calvin? He wasn't scared. Not anymore.